Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. After completing my tool chest, I've gotten several questions about the tools that I would be putting in there for traveling demos. One question that I thought was a great question came from an email friend, Caleb, who's actually a missionary. Because of his vocation, he is going to need to have a relatively small toolkit and be able to travel with this toolkit wherever his job may take him. So I'll read you Caleb's question in his own words, just so you can get an idea of the type of information that he's looking for. And then we'll go on and we'll talk about the types of tools that I would recommend for a quote-unquote traveling toolkit. So Caleb's question says, "Hi Bob, I have a special request and please feel free to deny it, as I know you have a job, family, hobby, and a blog. I'm reducing my shop to one box, hopefully about the size of the Underhill tool chest that I also hope to build. This isn't rooted in any anarchist desires, but because of my need to move around due to my vocation. So, in the spirit of your recent post about the Bare Necessities workshop space, could you do one on Bare Necessities toolkit for the style of woodworking that you do? I know you cover some of the tools in your intro videos, but it would be helpful if you could give more info on the planes that you find essential for joinery and moldings. Since Chris Schwarz uses primarily metal planes, I'd also like to know if you have a differing opinion. I'm wanting to complete my toolkit and chest before we move out of the country again in about 10 months, probably to India." This is a great question. A lot of times people have tools that they want to travel around with, and it's just not possible to be able to travel with an entire shop full of tools. So what are really the essentials that you need to have to do the type of woodworking I do? So I want to make a couple assumptions here. First, Caleb's question specifically mentioned joinery and molding planes. So in my opinion, we're talking about a little bit more than bare necessities here. Bare necessities would really be a bare bones stripped down toolkit. You could really do without the molding and joinery planes if you really pushed yourself to do so. However, if you want to build the type of furniture that I like to build, if you want to be able to include molding, if you want to be able to easily do some of the joinery that the joinery planes are designed to do, then it's nice to have a few of them. So what I want to do is talk about more of what I would consider a traveling tool chest, not a bare necessities toolkit, because obviously you could definitely eliminate some of the tools that I'm going to suggest for this kit. But what I'm going to consider this is, these are the tools that I would want to take with me if I were to be traveling a lot, so that I could build the type of pieces that I like to build, and not feel like I'm missing out on something, or gee, I really, really wish I had this other tool. So it's not going to be bare necessities per se. It's going to be more of somewhat minimalist, portable type toolkit. So let's get started talking about that. Obviously, one of the things that we have to consider is it's got to fit in the chest. Maybe it might take two people to lift the chest when it's full, but all the tools that we're going to take with us have to be able to fit in this chest. And Caleb mentioned that himself. He wants to build a chest about this size, so we have to make sure that our toolkit for travel is going to fit in this chest. So the first thing that I think about is breaking down stock. Now, especially when you're in areas where you may not be able to get pre-planed lumber. Caleb's talking about going to India. He's in Mexico, or was in Mexico. So you're not always going to be able to get surface lumber in these locations. So you're going to need ways to break down and surface your lumber. So to start, you're obviously going to need a couple of saws. So a rip saw, for obvious reasons, you're going to need to be able to rip stock down narrower, and a crosscut saw to be able to break that stuff down. So those are the first things that I'm going to put in the chest. And my rip saw won't fit, so I'm just going to sort of set it in there for now. But I actually need a smaller saw to fit in this chest. This saw is a little bit too big. The other saw I'm going to recommend is a tenon saw, filed rip. This saw is perfectly capable of cutting cross cuts when you need to by scribing a line, scribing a line with a knife across the grain to prevent the finished edge of the cut from tearing. And you can also use this saw to cut dovetails. So this is a good saw to have. You really don't need a dedicated dovetail saw if you don't have room for one. So we'll put that in the chest. Move this out of the way. So the next thing we're going to talk about are more big tools to go in the bottom. Again, sticking with the theme of being able to process your stock, you need planes. Now I know some folks will say you could just do with a jack plane alone. I'm going to agree with that, and then I'm going to say I don't want to do that. It's really sort of a pain to me to have to switch out irons, have a couple of irons for your jack plane, constantly change them out. To me, I find it easier to have a plane set up for rough work. That means it's going to have a big wide open mouth, it's going to have a heavy cambered iron. So 4 planes going to go in the chest. The other plane is going to be a tri-plane, and again, this is going to have less camber, a finer mouth, be able to take finer shavings. You can use it for straightening, squaring, and smoothing stock. The next plane I want to talk about is going to be a rabbet plane. And I'm going to suggest an unfenced variety. These are going to be a lot more versatile. You can use these for making joinery, for making rabbets, tongues for tongue and grooves. And they're also very handy for making moldings. So a rabbet plane, definitely a must-have in my book. So we'll put that in the back till. In addition to the rabbet plane, some kind of a plow plane. You're going to need this for making grooves. If you want to make a tongue and groove joint, this can do the groove portion of it. For insetting panels, raising panels, this is a great tool. This will also go in the bottom of the chest. Now, Caleb specifically asked about joinery planes, and one that I think is very valuable to have is a narrow dado plane. You think about dado planes, you typically think of planes for a dedicated size. So a 1/4 inch plane for a 1/4 inch dado, a 3/4 inch plane for a 3/4 inch dado. But in actuality, you can actually make dados from a 1/4 inch and larger with a 1/4 inch dado plane just by moving the batten, planing multiple dados right next to each other. So a single dado plane is actually all you really need. Is it nice to have more and to have dedicated? Sure, but not necessary. Sticking with the planes, we also mentioned making moldings. You can make simple moldings just with the rabbet plane and use it to round over edges and such. But if you want to start getting into complex moldings, you're going to need a few dedicated planes for that. I like hollows and rounds, but the thing is you don't really need a whole set. My most used sizes range from a 1/4 inch pair to a 1/2 inch pair. So a 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch, and 1/2 inch pair. These 6 planes can really do a whole lot of furniture-sized moldings. It's nice to have the larger sizes when they're occasionally needed, but the majority of the time, these 6 planes do all of my molding work. So we'll go ahead and put those in the chest. The other molding plane that I like to have is a bead. This is a simple side bead. It's difficult for hollows and rounds to do this type of profile, so a dedicated bead plane is really nice to have. Something about a 1/4 inch. Again, right in that molding plane till. Another valuable tool that I'm going to lump in with the planes is a card scraper. Smoothing planes, nice to have, not necessary. You can really do a whole lot, and sometimes card scraper works better than a smoothing plane. The other thing I'm going to lump in with the planes is a Spokeshave. If you're going to do any curved work at all, you're going to need some way to smooth that out. The Spokeshave and the card scraper are a great team that work together for that. So we've got planes out of the way, we've got our saws out of the way. Let's talk a little bit about marking our stock and marking our joints. We're going to obviously need some tools for that. A ruler. I don't use it a lot, but when I need to take a quick measurement or measure something out to a rough size, a ruler is nice to have. A simple 2'4" fold works well. A tape measure or even a longer folding rule works well. A marking gauge. To keep the toolkit small and light, a combination gauge is great. This is not exactly my favorite gauge, but the fact that it has movable pins for mortises and a single pin on the other side make it good for travel and for multiple uses. What would even be better would be an adjustable gauge in the style with two independent arms, because you can use those types of gauges as two separate marking gauges as well as using them as a mortising gauge. So we'll put the gauge in the bottom till. A square. Obviously we're not going to be able to do any kind of precision work without a square. So we're going to add that, throw that into the mix. A knife. I prefer to mark all my precision joinery with a knife. I like a striking knife like this. There's an awl on one end for scribing with the grain or starting screw holes or nail holes, and there's a marking knife on the other end. A bevel. This does the work of multiple different squares, miter squares or any angle in between, so that's a great tool to have. Pair dividers, another necessary tool. We definitely want to have one of these. I use these a lot. And a pencil. We're going to do a lot of marking with a pencil, so that deserves a spot in the kit as well. All right, and speaking of joinery, something else that needs to go in the chest are chisels. I don't think you need a lot of chisels for a traveling kit, but I like to focus on the smaller sizes because they're the ones that I seem to use the most, especially when it comes to chopping joinery. So I'm going to recommend the lower half, the smaller sizes, an 1/8, a 1/4, a 3/8, and a 1/2 inch chisel. And I'm also going to recommend one larger chisel that can be used for paring. Something about the size of this 1.5 inch chisel. Make a good paring chisel. We'll also need a way to make mortises. Single mortise chisel would be good for a traveling chest. Something about 1/4 to 5/16 of an inch would make a good size for a universal mortise chisel. Some other tools that we're typically going to need. You're usually going to have a mallet. So we can put that in there. Turn screw or screwdriver. A couple different sizes for a couple different size screws. Brace. Need some way to make holes. And then to go with the brace, just a handful of bits in the most commonly used sizes. Some center bits or auger bits, and then maybe a handful of twist bits for boring pilot holes for screws and nails. So we'll add those in there. Another thing you're going to probably want is a hammer. You need a way to drive your nails. So we'll throw that in there. Finally, let's not forget about sharpening equipment. you're going to want to throw in at least one stone, preferably two. I like a coarse and a coarser grit stone and a finer grit stone. I'm not going to actually put these in the chest because I don't have a box right now that'll fit in there. But something like a medium or fine India stone as a coarse stone, and then maybe a hard Arkansas or a black or translucent Arkansas as your fine stone. Some honing oil to go with the stones. A strap to put the final polish on your edges. And some stropping compound, and this is just the green crayon that I think I got this one from Lee Valley, but it may have come from Tools for Working Wood, I'm not sure, but there's a lot of different places that sell it. And then for your saws, just the proper size saw files, and these can go in the bottom of the saw till, preferably in a roll of some kind just to keep them protected. I'm just going to throw them in the bottom for now. And really, that's about it. All those tools fit with actually plenty of room to spare. And believe it or not, the chest is still light enough to be lifted by one person. Now, I'm not going to say that it's light and you're going to carry it for a long distance, but it's light enough where you could probably carry it from your shop to the car, get it in the back of the car by yourself without too much effort. So that's about it. So let's take a look at the inside of the chest and see how all these tools are laid out so that they can be stored nice and neat. So as you can see, in the front section here is a till that'll hold 4 saws. In the bottom of that till is where we can lay our saw files. There's room underneath the bottom of the blades to lay a tool roll with some files in it. The larger planes, 4-plane and the tri-plane, can go right in the bottom here. The Dado plane fits right between them. We can't put this in the molding plane till because of the scoring iron on the front. The plow plane here fits right at the back, along with the oil. You can really put those anyway. I've got the strop blade in here as well. We move these tills out of the way. You can see the molding plane storage in the back. Over here are the molding planes in the till, the mallet and the brace. We've got the lower till that's holding chisels, mortise chisel, screwdrivers, and finally our gauge. And then the upper till, anything from other marking tools, striking knife, bevel and dividers, ruler, shave, our bits, hammer, and our card scraper. So as you can see, the chest holds a fairly decent set of tools, plenty to be able to travel with and do a lot of different types of furniture work, anything from joinery to moldings to rough surface prep and breakdown. So with a chest this small, you can get a very good, a nice modest set of tools in here that will still allow you to travel and still allow you to do a good deal of work. So again, bare necessities, maybe not, but I think it's a great size for travel and will certainly hold more than enough tools to do any type of furniture work. And as you saw, there's plenty of room to put more tools in the chest than what I've discussed. So Caleb, I hope that answers your question, and anyone else that might have been wondering what might be a good set of tools for traveling. I hope that gives you an idea Obviously you can add to this, or you can make the set smaller to suit your needs, but I think this is a fairly good complete set that will allow you to do a lot of work in a lot of different types of projects, a lot of different styles of furniture.